Good morning, one and all of you in semi-quarantine or stay at home right now. Crazy times indeed. And for the crazy times, we've got a good guest, I believe, a phenomenal guest, frankly, who's going to help us understand a little bit through this. So let's do this methodically. This is Greg Silverman, your CIO, for the next 30, 45 minutes. On the line, I have Dante Venafro, and Dante is the Director of Business Development at Agency Enterprise Studio, a development, design, and data science firm focused on building products, I love this part, that increase human agency. That's well put. Using AI, blockchain, among other software solutions, he helps early-stage founders discover, prioritize, and build their MVP, minimum viable product, I believe that is. Dante was Director of Partnerships at LA Blockchain Lab, a collaboration of academia, government, businesses, and community developing a sustainable blockchain ecosystem in Southern California and elsewhere. And really what the defining moment, perhaps, Dante, on your resume is the blockchain advisory member at Oracle, where he identified, onboarded enterprise clients seeking to pilot Oracle's cloud and blockchain solutions, evaluate partnerships, blockchain consortia, events, university relationships, and companies, probably countries as well, interested in developing an Oracle blockchain or joining the Oracle ecosystem. He's an alumni of the University of Virginia, graduated with distinction in interdisciplinary studies, being media, public policy, and commerce. And in my vernacular, Dante, I would say interdisciplinary studies is really akin to being the Renaissance man and looking at things from different points of view. So let me begin by welcoming you, Dante, to our podcast of CIOs and Bow Ties.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure. It's a privilege. Lovely.
Well, let's jump right in. And I don't want to spend too much time on the past, but we always need a bit of context because there's a lot going on in the world today, which I think you have a good or a fair grasp on, and you definitely got an opinion on. So let's be methodical, Dante. Tell us a little bit about, in your own words, about your background, your time at Oracle. What did you learn there, particularly around blockchain solutions and AI in particular?
Absolutely. So, yeah, it was actually my first job out of college was at Oracle in Austin, Texas, for their cloud team. And this was in 2017, right before the parabolic, euphoric hype cycle of all the cryptocurrencies. This is like right before Bitcoin shot up and everything followed. And Austin, Texas happened to be a very fortunate place to be during that time because Blockstream and a lot of core Bitcoin developers, Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, a lot of key folks at Hyperledger, and a lot of just tech talent was based there. And so what was interesting is, after work, even though it was mainly, in a way started out as a sales role, I would go into the city and go to these meetups and meet a lot of interesting folks, even like fund managers that were looking into the space. And I ended up learning that Oracle had this early adoption program where big enterprises that were curious about blockchain, they're dipping their toes into the space, could actually pilot an unreleased version of Oracle Blockchain Cloud. And I thought that was an extremely interesting opportunity that was at the perfect time. And so even though I wasn't necessarily the technical expert or the chief architect, all I had to do was type in and find out who those people were, call them, hey, can I introduce you to different folks I'm meeting in downtown Austin? How about I introduce you to some enterprises that I've been talking to and following on Twitter and see if we can make some deals happen, see if I can have enterprises pilot the technology. And they're like, absolutely, sure, let's see what you can do. And within a short while, I was able to get them on the phone with like over a dozen Fortune 500 companies and like folks that And then, you know, sort of like a fly on the wall, I'd hear them all discuss. I'd get them on the phone with, you know, the group vice president of the blockchain, the senior product manager, and the chief architect, whose name was Todd Little, and just sort of be on a fly on the wall and discuss how they approached the deals, how they described the technology. And it was interesting to learn about the different pros and cons of the permission, private, scalable Hyperledger platform, but then the highest return in the decade Bitcoin and Ethereum permissionless philosophies at work. And then just to come full circle, now we're in 2020, and the thing that I'm most excited about is this new baseline protocol that John Wolpert, who's one of the folks that I met in Austin, I believe he's still there, has released. And it's basically it's a very interesting protocol that will marry Hyperledger and Ethereum that already joined together. But this takes it, I think, a step further with Microsoft and EY. And there's going to be a lot of interesting things happening for big enterprises that actually want to have a permissionless piece to their overall.
All right. Let me, if I may, let me just interject. I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves of where the world is going. So folks, what we've got here in Dante, again, I always like a multidisciplinary person who comes at things from different angles, sees use cases from different perspectives, which I think is very important. Doesn't necessarily have to be the tech guru on the team. And so obviously you got that vantage point, which I think is very important, very interesting, Dante, for our listeners to see, because I think you can project trends. So let's become, that was the past. Let's look at the current state, specifically just from the this tech revolution. How has the landscape changed for tech startups just over the last few weeks? I mean, my sense is everything is pretty much frozen in place, but I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, this is going to be catastrophic. I think the pandemic and the lockdown will wipe out their business, and then it's accelerating a lot of other trends. And so I think telehealth is going to be a very interesting opportunity for startups. I saw over hundreds of millions deployed into synthetic biology. I saw the founder of Palantir retweet like Distributed Bio and SwiftScale Bio are two names I want to drop of ways that they can actually synthetically create antibodies that would.
And this was over the last few weeks? Is that what
this
you were
is over the last few weeks, yeah. This is over the last few weeks, and they're trying to actually create synthetic antibodies that would be able to help people faster than a vaccine that would typically take 12 to 18 months. And I'm seeing, I think, all the delivery companies go on a mass hiring spree. I think it's going to have an interesting effect and put pressure on the supply chains to have more manufacturing in the U.S. as opposed to China. I've even read some interesting articles actually about the Harvard professor of virology was arrested by the FBI in late January, and this is on NPR, because he lied to the government, and Wuhan, only a few miles from what they say was the wet market that this came from, have like a military grade virology lab, which I think is an interesting coincidence. And so this guy was the chair of Harvard biology and virology, and then was arrested in late January before this became like the media lockdown panic that it is. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've read that story, but I have interesting.
Well, I've not. No, I am familiar with the story of Dr. Li Liang, I think you say, who was the initial doctor who kind of sounded the alarm on WeChat, and then was subsequently shut down by the Chinese police. Anyway, not to get on the conspiracy track, let's. Certainly healthcare. I mean, it's all zoomed in on healthcare. But tell us a little bit about, some of those companies you were working with that were in the MVP stage that are now just kind of at a loss of what to do. What are you telling them?
Well, a lot of people believe that it won't kill their business because of the bill that is still being debated upon. The last time that I read it, so people are on pause. A lot of folks that were building their MVP, it's not that they're all of a sudden no longer interested in proceeding, but I think they're waiting for additional guidance from the federal government. And right now it seems like the Democrats are saying that the Republicans have language in there that gives them this $500 billion slush fund, and the Republicans are saying the Democrats are putting things that have nothing to do with the coronavirus in there, like giving $30 million to art programs and giving them actually the power so we could vote remotely, and that we don't need voter ID, and then that could lead to a lot of voter fraud, and that it's being politicized rather than just like, here's X amount of rent that restaurants are paying, here's X amount of payroll, here's all the unemployment numbers, and just basing it on those factors. So I think once that bill gets passed, it'll give me a better idea of how people are reacting. But I would say half of the people have paused on like developing more, and then the other half are accelerating. There's companies like PlushCare, NurseFly. Go Forward is another company. Forward is spending over $2 million right now on software development, and then I really do not think the world will be the same after, in a business sense, especially.
Hold that point if you don't mind. I'd like again. We try. We are not millennials on this podcast, unfortunately, and for better or worse, we've been through. Gosh, I went through the 1997 currency crisis, the 2000 internet bubble burst, the 2008 burst, and now we got the corona. We'll call it the coronavirus. So we've seen a lot of crashes, and I do know that companies that do accelerate during these, we'll call it what it is, a bear market. In fact, these are the companies, the leading companies of the future, specifically around blockchain and AI. What's your sense of what folks will learn from this corona stay-at-home period?
Oh, huge. So this is huge for blockchain. They're actually, if you look at the Democratic bill, it's actually something that I see the Republicans push against. Is they have a phrase in there called Fed accounts, where they basically want to use a digital dollar, a stable coin, and actually give people wallets similar to like Calibra. And I don't know if Facebook Libra is lobbying behind that, like lobbying the Democrats to do that, but there's language in the current bill that was out yesterday that wants the $2,000 that's likely to be distributed to every American to be done and be distributed to their wallet through a stable coin, because it would make the process actually cleaner. And then interestingly enough, on the other side of how it's important to blockchain is the markets are crashing. Bitcoin was created in 2008 before that financial crisis because of the reckless money printing, inflation. And then people wonder, why is there a Federal Reserve? That didn't exist before 1913, and they just print the money that everyone else spends their life chasing. And then I think it had an interesting impact on Bitcoin. That the fate of Bitcoin could be related to the other projects, because first it went down, over 60%, and now it's coming back up because I think people are starting to see, wait a second, if I'm a family office and I'm managing billions of dollars and I'm keeping it in cash, like Warren Buffett, that's smart because Warren Buffett can go spend $125 billion now to buy up everybody at record low prices. But then on the other hand, if you have your money in cash and it's being printed and inflated to oblivion, it makes Bitcoin a lot more attractive. This was the black swan use case that it was built for, and it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out. I already see it going up to, you know, at first it was coupled to the larger stock market, but over the last 5-6 days, it's been largely decoupled. And while the stock market continues to fall, it went up 25-30%.
Right. What about, okay, that's fair enough. I want to get into specific use cases in a second. So I think we've got the broad landscape. I recall the book Creature from Jekyll Island, which talks about the creation of the Federal Reserve. And of course, we want to stay clear of all conspiracy theories, but there's definitely something to the fact of printing money out of fresh air, which is exactly what fiat is. So listen, folks, let's take a short break. When I come back, I'm going to pose some specific use case questions to Dante and see how he responds given his perch. So we'll be right back.